Hey there, how's it going, everybody? So I went to record some videos for you all the other day, and unfortunately, when I went to turn on my recording machine, it wouldn't start up, which isn't super surprising because I've had that machine for over 10 years now, and it finally stopped working on me. So I did have to go out and buy a new one, and that is the one that I'm recording on now. And this machine is pretty much in the exact same state that it was when I took it out of the box. So I haven't changed any settings or set up any of my development tools, and I haven't installed any applications on this machine other than Camtasia, and that's what I'm using for my screen recordings. So this is completely brand new right now without any customizations. So in this video, what I wanted to do was show you how I go about setting up a new development machine for myself completely from scratch. And I also get a lot of comments and emails asking, what software I'm using and how I have all of my settings configured. So hopefully after this video, you'll be able to find out exactly where I have all these things saved and how I go about getting everything installed so that you can customize those to how you want to use them. And when it comes to setting all this stuff up, I actually don't like needing to remember everything off the top of my head. So I have all of these things saved in automated scripts that I pull down from Github to set up my machine exactly how I like it. And that way it's nice and predictable every time I set up a new machine, and it does the same thing every single time. Now, some of you may have clicked on this video thinking that I was going to show how to migrate one machine over to another using a backup or time machine for the Mac or something like that. But whenever I do this, I like to have fresh installations of everything. That's just a personal preference of mine. When I get a new development machine, I don't like migrating all my old backups over from one machine to another because over time our machines just get so cluttered and they have a lot of leftover software and things that are never deleted. So I personally like to start fresh from scratch. And that's pretty easy for me because my files and photos are saved in sync on a lot of cloud services. So I don't really keep a lot of my stuff on a local machine that needs to be transferred over. But for things that I do want to keep, I just save those directly to a thumb drive and transfer them over that way. And then that way, all the applications and everything else are installed from scratch. But with that said, let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you exactly how I do this. So first, I'm going to need to actually grab those dot files that I use that have all those automated scripts, and I have those set up on GitHub. Now, I don't have Google Chrome installed because I haven't installed anything on here yet, so I'm just going to use Safari, and I'll just type in Corey Schafer Dotfiles. It should take me there, and then we'll kind of go over these. So first, let me go ahead and make the text a little bit larger so that everybody can see. I'll maximize the window here a little bit. And now let's scroll down and go over these dot files. Now, I have done a video of these dot files before, but that was a long time ago. I think that was about 5 or 6 years ago now, and a lot of these have changed. Actually, I think this is basically a complete rewrite of what I had in that last video. And I also wrote my dot files to have a README file here that walks through the steps that I'm going to take in this video to set up a new machine. And actually, you can see here in the documentation that after I release this video, I'm actually going to put it within the README file here as a reference. Now, one of the most important things I put right here at the top for important note before installation. So the thing about these dot files is that these are highly personalized to my own preferences and the way that I do things, and it will actually modify your system. So whenever I run these scripts, it moves files around, it changes settings on the machine, it changes, my desktop icon to the way that I like it for these videos and things like that. A lot of these changes are irreversible if you don't know exactly what the script is doing. So if you want a development environment like mine, what I suggest is just forking a repository like this. And that's exactly how I got started too. I forked a repository of somebody's settings that I liked, made my own changes, and then over time it kind of became my own thing. So just be aware of that it's important to know what this script actually does before you run it on your own machine, because it is going to make some changes. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and take a look at some of these scripts here to see exactly what this is going to do. Now, I'm not going to go over every single detail as to what these installation scripts do, but let's just get a broad overview of what's going on here. So the main entry point to these installations is in this install.sh script. So if we look at this, then we can see that one of the first things that it does is it finds our home directory with this .files directory, which is where we're going to clone the repository. And here is where it copies over all of the .files that we currently have, which are these files over here, bash profile, bash prompt, my Z shell prompts, and files and configurations, things like that. Now, what those .files do is they set up my terminal in a specific way. For example, if I look at this Z shell file, what this does is it loads other .files here. So it loads up my prompt, it loads up my aliases. So if I look at my prompt, this is just a custom prompt here, because if I open up my terminal now, for those of you who are used to seeing my videos before, you probably know that I have this customized to where, it has my own colors set up, and also whenever I'm in a Git repository, it'll tell me the branch that I'm in within this prompt and everything here. So that's what this prompt here does. So I actually have these set up both for bash and for Z shell. So for example, if I go to my bash prompts, we can see that's basically the same thing. Both my bash and my Z shell prompts are both using this shared prompt here, which is code that works on both of them. So prompt git, that's what shows the git branch that I'm on. I have this prompt v and v here, which shows us if we are within a Python virtual environment, and then it just sets up the colors that I use and things like that. So if I go back here to the installation script, then the next thing that it does is it runs my Mac OS specific scripts. Now this is all kind of Mac specific, since I work mainly on Macs. A lot of this will work on Linux as well. But within Mac here, you can see that we're just installing some command line tools. I set up a couple of different things for the mouse, the scroll direction and things like that. And then I'm putting my desktop icon to be the one that have probably seen in these videos before. So just a very short Mac script here. One of the main things is within this brew.sh script, and that's where it runs all of my homebrew commands. So if we look at that, then this is where a lot of my applications get installed here. So first, I'm installing Homebrew, and if you don't know what Homebrew is, I actually have a separate video on that. It's basically just a package manager for Macs and also for Linux. And after that's installed, then I come down here and I update it, upgrade it, just make sure that we're using all of the latest packages. And then for the command line, I'm installing Python, Bash, ZSH, Git, tree, pylint, things like that. And I tried to comment this as much as I could so that you all could modify these if you want to modify these scripts. But right here, we can see that I am modifying my system to change my shell to use the homebrew version of ZSH instead of the one that comes installed on the Mac. And then I set up my Git configurations here with my Git username, my Git email. And then what we do, like I said, I'm not going to go over every little bit here. This is just setting up a virtual environment that I use for a lot of my tutorials. Now, these applications here, these are applications that I'm going to install with Homebrew Cask. And Cask is an actual application for my machine, usually a GUI application. So here we can see that this installs Google Chrome, Firefox, Sublime Text, Visual Studio, Spotify, Discord, my Google Drive, and things like that. Then after that, it installs some fonts that I like. And then I think that's basically it for that file. So after that's done, if we go back to the installation script, we can see that it runs my VS Code settings. And within here, what it does is it installs some different extensions that I use for VS Code. And anytime that I enjoy another extension or something like that, if I really like it and want to transfer that to my normal workflow, then I'll just add it here to these scripts. So after it installs those extensions, then it moves a couple of things around on my machine. We can see here that it moves over my custom settings, my custom key bindings, and things like that. Now, I did put a couple of safeguards in place for certain things. So what this is doing here is it's backing up my old setting file and my old key bindings into a backup file here, just in case something goes wrong. Then I'll have those backups. But these backups, it only keeps one iteration of these. So I probably could have made this to where it is keeping timestamp versions of these backups or something like that. But like I said, this is just my personal preferences and it's been working for me. So this is how I have things set up. And lastly, if we look at our installation script again, we can see that it comes down here to Sublime Text. And Sublime Text, this is how I have everything set up here. So the Sublime Text one's a little bit different than VS Code because it actually has to be opened up until some different folders and directories are created. So that's why I'm kind of opening up Sublime here and then closing it a few times just to make sure that everything gets installed correctly. And the way that Sublime Text installs its packages is you set this package control settings file. So what I'm doing is copying my own over into the one that gets installed through Homebrew. And then I open up Sublime Text automatically to install those packages. Now, in this settings directory, this is actually part of my Dotfiles repository here. This is just a couple of different things that I use for settings. So we can see here that, for example, these are my VS Code settings here that get copied over. These are some of my Sublime Text settings for my linter, my main Sublime Text settings here. So all of these are things that just get automatically moved to the correct locations whenever I run these scripts. So now that we've seen a broad overview, and again, if you actually want to look at these, I would highly recommend looking through the README file here and diving in and taking a look at it yourself. But now that we've looked at this, got a broad overview of what's going on, and know all the caveats about running this code, let's go ahead and run it on this machine and see how it works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the URL to this repository, and now I can actually close down my browser after I have that. And now I'm going to open up Terminal here. We can see that we already have it open. And normally when you open up Terminal, it should put you directly into your home folder. So I'm in my Core EMS home folder here. If you're not, then you can just hit CD and enter, and that should take you to your home directory. Or you can use CD with the tilde, and that should take you to your home directory as well. So now that I'm in my home directory here, if I do an ls, we just have the normal things, my desktop, my documents, things like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say git clone, and then I'm going to paste in that .files repository from GitHub. So let's go ahead and run that. Now, whenever I first run git on this machine, we can see that it didn't actually run this. So it says that no developer tools were found. It's requesting to install. Now, sometimes I've had this pop up for me before. It didn't pop up this time, but we can see down here in the bottom right that if I click that, then we do have a little pop up here that says that we need to install Git. So I'm just going to go ahead and allow it to do that. Agree to the terms of service. Now, most of these installations usually go fairly quickly. This one says 4 minutes right now. It's probably not going to take 4 minutes. It's probably just saying that, and we'll update here in just a second. But if any of these installations do take a little bit of time, then what I'm going to do is just skip forward in the video a little bit until these installations are done, just so that you don't have to sit here and watch these installations install on my machine. Okay, so now we can see that that software was installed. So now let's go back here to the terminal where we tried to run that git command before. And now I'm going to run git clone on that .files repo again. And this time we can see that it pulled those down correctly. So now I'm going to CD into that .files directory. And this is just what we've looked at before. If I do an LSLA, we can see that here I have all my .files, and we've already taken a broad overview of some of these files. So we have my install script here, Mac OS, and my settings module, and things like that. Now, it does look like I have my Sublime Linter settings out here. I messed around a little bit with this before making this video. I also have those in there. So that's probably just a mistake. It probably won't be there by the time I release this video. I probably just accidentally committed that and didn't see it. But let's look at these files again. And like I said, this installation script here, install.sh, that's the main entry point into these installations. So now I'll just go ahead and run that. We can see that it is executable over here. So if I just do an install.sh, let's go ahead and run that, and it'll go through the process of setting up my entire machine. Okay, so we run that, and it goes through and creates symlinks to all those dot files. Now it's saying that the command line tools are already installed, or else it would have tried to install those. Now, a couple of these things, it's going to ask for permissions, like it wanted permission to set my desktop background there, so I allowed that. Now what it's trying to do is install Homebrew. So some of these require sudo access, so I'll go ahead and put in my password here. And this is just Homebrew telling us what it's going to install. So I'll hit enter to accept that. And now Homebrew is going to go through the installation of all the command line tools that I use and all of the applications like Google Chrome and things like that that I use. Okay, so one of the first breaks that it comes to in this installation script is telling me that it's trying to change my default shell to the Homebrew Z shell. So I'll go ahead and put in my password to accept that, and put in my password again, and that was successful. Now it's asking me to set up my Git configuration. So I'll go ahead and put in my information for Git. And like I said before, these are all things that you can forget. I don't like needing to remember all of this off the top of my head. So having it ask all of this information right off the bat for a one-time install, I just like getting it all out of the way. Okay, so now it looks like it's done installing most of those applications and the fonts and things like that. Now, there are a couple of manual things to go through in this installation process. For example, and whenever there is a manual step, I just have it echo out to the terminal here to tell me exactly what to do. So here I'm telling myself to import my terminal settings. Now, these are different from my command line prompt settings and my dot files. This is actually going to customize my actual terminal application with a different background and transparency and things like that. So I'm just telling myself here to go to Terminal, Settings, Profiles, Import, and to import that from here. So let me go to Terminal, Settings, and Profiles. And this is based off of this profile here. Now to import, we click down here in the bottom left, go to Import, and let's see, this is in my home folder, Dotfiles, Settings, and I just named this CMS Terminal here. So let me choose CMS, and then click to have this be my default profile for my terminal. So now I'll just close that down. And it's actually not going to apply those changes to the terminal until we restart, but we don't want to do that now because we're still in the middle of our installation script. So I'll go ahead and press enter to continue. Now, at this point of the script, I have it tell me to sign into a few different applications here because, again, the whole point of this script is to be completely done with everything after the script is finished running. So I don't want to have to go through and think, oh, I forgot to sign into Spotify, I forgot to sign into Chrome. So I just remind myself to do it here manually. But I'm not going to do that here in this video because I don't want you all to have to watch me go through all that. So where it says sign into Chrome, I sign into Chrome first because I use their password manager. So that gives me access to all my other passwords. But I'm just going to press enter there, skip signing into Spotify, skip signing into Discord. Now it's saying to open Rectangle and give it the necessary permissions. Now that is the Windows manager that I use on a Mac. So in order for that to actually manage my Windows, I have to open it up for the first time here and give it access. And then what we need to do here is open my system settings and actually give it access to be able to manage my Windows. So I'll go ahead and put in my password there and just use the recommended out-of-the-box behavior. And now we have our settings here. And this is actually another thing that I tell myself to do manually. So within the script here, after I have it give the necessary permissions, I've already done that. So I'll hit enter. And now it says import your rectangle settings located in the settings rectangle config.json file. So I'll just do that really quick. Import. And again, that was in my home folder, Dotfiles, settings, rectangle config.json. And that should be set up how I like it now. So now I'll go ahead and hit enter to continue. And now it should continue on to the VS Code stuff. So this is installing my VS Code applications. Okay, so after it makes all of the changes that it needs to make to VS Code and gets that set up, it's actually going to open my .files directory within VS Code. And the reason I do this is because we can see here that I'm asking myself to log into certain extensions like Copilot and things like that. So again, I'm not going to do that for this video. It's also asking me to select some color themes. So one thing here, let's open up these settings. And whenever I open up the settings, let me make the text a little bit larger so everybody can see. Now, you've probably seen this color scheme that I use in VS Code in other videos, but we can see that it installed all of those correctly. And this is how I've had my VS Code set up in other videos, and that installation script did all of that for me. So again, like I said, this is normally where I would go in and go to GitHub Copilot and log in to my extensions that I have access to and things like that. But I'm going to skip that for this video and do that later, even though that kind of defies the purpose of why I have these scripts to begin with. Now, one thing I noticed whenever I was testing this script on another machine for this video, whenever I run the VS Code part of this script, I saw some warnings that popped up when it gets to this VS Code setup part of the script, and I looked these up. So one of these we can see here, and then it says to, check Electron and things like that. Now, I looked that up, and as far as I could tell, it looks like it has something to do with a release that they had in February. I don't think it has anything to do with my script, and that'll likely be fixed when they make their next update, I would assume. But if not, and those warnings linger on for too long, then I will give my script a look and see exactly what it could be. But I can't imagine that it's anything that I'm doing, because I'm just running some very simple code that installs some very popular extensions. But even with these warnings for that code command, it hasn't affected anything on my end. It still sets all of the settings and everything the way that it should. So I'm going to go ahead and continue the script here. Now, once this gets to the Sublime Text part of the script, it's going to maybe look a little bit weird because of how Sublime Text works. You're going to see Sublime Text open and close a couple of times on its own. And like I said earlier, that's because, unlike VS Code, some of the settings and folders don't get created until Sublime Text is open for the first time. And those need to be created before I move over my custom settings. So that's what it's doing there in the background. And now what it's doing here is we can see that it says that it's opening Sublime to automatically install packages and to press enter after all the packages are installed. So whenever I moved over my package control settings and it had all of the applications within that file that I wanted to have installed, we can see that it went through and it looks like it installed all of these correctly. Now, if you want to check within Sublime, let me go ahead and make the text a little bit larger here. One thing that I would recommend is look down here in the bottom left, and it'll show you if something is going on, if a package is installing. There's nothing down there right now, so these are probably all done. But just to make double sure, we can press Control Backtick, and Control Backtick will open up our terminal down here at the bottom within Sublime Text, and we can see everything that it did and check here for any errors. But from what I can tell, it looks like everything installed correctly. So that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and close down Sublime Text, go back to our script and press enter. Okay, so after we closed down Sublime Text for the first time and continued with the installation, it went over and moved all of my custom settings here. So now it looks a little bit more, if you've seen my videos, how you would expect these scripts to look. And we can see that it has the color themes and everything like that set up the way that I do in other videos. So at this point, the reason that I have this open back up again, I say that to go ahead and insert my Sublime Text license and things like that. This is also where I like to check for errors. So just to make sure that all of my custom settings are working properly, I'll open up that terminal again, look for any errors. That all looks good. So now I can just close this back down. Normally I would go ahead and put in my license key so that I'm not asked to enter it every time I'm working within Sublime. But since there's no errors and I'm not putting in my license key now, I'm just going to go ahead and press enter there. And we can see that now it says that the installation is complete. Okay, so now that that installation script is complete, I'm going to go ahead and quit out of terminal. And if I open that back up, hopefully it has my terminal profile set up the way that I like it as well. So we can see that it's changed my prompt around here. And if I navigate to that .files directory, which is a Git repo, then we can see here that my prompt is working to where it can tell that it's on a Git repository and tells us that we are on the master branch. Okay, so this is all looking pretty good. You know, you can test things as much as you want. If I wanted to see which Z shell that I'm using, I could do that, and we can see that it appropriately set it up to where I'm using the homebrew Z shell. I can do a brew list to see, whoops, and that's actually not -- list. That's just a command for list. So let me rerun that again. And we can see that these are all the formula and cast that Brew installed. Okay, so that's all looking good. I'll go ahead and close down my terminal here. And we can see that we have our desktop set as well. But with that said, that's basically it. That's basically the entire process that I do on a new machine. Now, that may have seemed like a long process since I was explaining everything along the way, and since I showed you the ins and outs of, you know, a broad overview of what those .files do. But when I'm not recording and I'm only running these installation scripts, that entire process actually goes by extremely quickly and gets my machine set up exactly how I like them in no time. So if you are a developer who has a lot of, you know, customizations and different tools that you like to use, I would highly recommend having a system like this set up in place for yourself. Before I used automated scripts like this, you know, I was constantly found myself forgetting how I set things up in a specific way, needed to go back to my old machine to make sure everything was carried over correctly. Months later, I would remember that I forgot to install a certain app that I'd used on a somewhat regular basis, or that I forgot to log into something, anything like that. It just takes all the guesswork involved in stuff like that out, and doesn't keep me wondering if I've forgot something. And then anytime that I do use a new tool or application, what I'll do is I just keep these .files here within my home folder. And if I have a new tool that I want to add, I just come in here to my .file script, and let's say that it's something I can install with Brew. I'll just come down here and add it either to my packages for the command line or to my cask list if it is, you know, like a browser or something like that. But with that said, that's basically it. Now that I have this new machine set up, I can actually record videos on here. So I'll be getting some new videos to you all very shortly that I have basically ready to go. There's several that I already have written and just need to be recorded. So hopefully this video gave you all some ideas for how you can use some automated scripts in your own daily tasks. And for anybody who's ever wondered or sent me messages as to, you know, what software I'm using or how I have things configured, I hope that now you have a good idea of exactly where you can go to see exactly how I have things set up. They're all in those .files there. Now, like I said, I would highly recommend, if you want a setup like mine, to fork my repository and to make your own custom changes, because like I said, it's just going to make all of those changes on your system. And if you had it set up in a certain way, it's going to overwrite all those settings that you had. So make sure you know what the scripts are doing before you run them. I don't want to get a lot of messages after people watch this video after I've given that disclaimer, you know, 100 times now, that my script messed up messed up your system. So be careful is all I'm saying. Make sure you know what the scripts are doing. Make your own customizations and test around with it before running my specific scripts that I use for myself. But with that said, if anybody has any questions about what we covered here in this video, then feel free to ask in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up. And also, it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon or YouTube, and I'll leave links to those pages in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.